Well, hello, my friends. That should be recording now. As usual, I can't see whether the camera is recording, so I just hope for the best. I decided to make a video outside today. It's sunny, but it's frigid out here. Portland's been in the teens and the 20s and low 30s on and off for the last week or so. Guess it's been kind of a cold snap here. And I'm preparing for the storm, because tomorrow it's supposed to snow, I don't know, 2 to 6 inches and perhaps freezing rain and ice, and who knows. We don't, here in the valley, in the Willamette Valley, we don't play games with weather. We don't pretend like we know what it's going to do, because with the Cascades and then the coastal mountains and being trapped where we are, plus I live right on the gorge, which has the easterly winds, and it's impossible to know what's gonna happen. One day they'll say it's gonna snow a foot and nothing happens. The next day that it just starts snowing out of the blue, 6 inches, and they had no idea. So I like it like that, as opposed to living in an area where you just know what it's gonna be like. I don't watch the news or anything, or the weather generally, but it is good to know, I guess, if it's gonna snow. Anyhow, enough about the weather. I'm actually sitting here sipping a cup of guayusa tea, Ilex guayusa, which is a leaf from the Amazon, or South America anyhow. I believe it's Ecuadorian. And it's actually just becoming more and more popular here in the States. It was a very popular drink with missionaries in the 17 and 1800s, I guess. And it's funny because there was actually, I can't remember the actual name of what they used to call it. Was like ionine or something nine, and they thought that it was different, separate from caffeine. But then they found out that coffee, once they were able to actually see, what things were made of, they found out that coffee and tea actually contain the same compound, so they call it caffeine. But what they call it is xanthine, if you will. A high xanthine blend of, say, guarana can have a variety of compounds, I think it's theophylline and theobromine, and one of the interesting ones is L-theanine, because L-theanine is a compound that's only found in tea, and not only in tea, but it's not found in coffee. And this is interesting because I've always been a coffee drinker, and they say that the great thing about tea is, while it may have lower caffeine, there's a lot of misconceptions about it being higher or lower in caffeine. It really depends strongly on how long you steep it, because you're using a smaller amount of tea by weight than coffee generally. So one can't assume that tea is going to have less or more. It depends on how long you steep it. But there's an interesting component that's when it's added with caffeine, which is L-theanine. It seems to ease out and balance the effects of the caffeine, giving you a more prolonged, focused feeling, rather than the ups and downs and jitters that can come from drinking coffee or just caffeine alone. This is why taking no-dose pills is no-go. But I take L-theanine with my nootropic blend that I make, so it's in there, so I don't worry. Even if I do drink coffee, I'm still getting L-theanine, but I prefer tea. And I think I'm going to start drinking this guayusa tea now, because I made a pot of it this morning, or a pan rather. And the beautiful thing about this is, traditionally, they will just leave a pot going over the fire with leaves in it and just keep adding water throughout the day, which is really interesting, because a lot of things, once it's been steeped, it just doesn't taste the same anymore. This, you can steep it for half an hour, come back and get another cup, and it's great. So I'm on my, 4th cup or something, and it's pretty strong. And that's because whenever I test something, I want to make sure I get the full effect of it. And it's interesting, I found at a certain level of caffeine, my eyes will actually get kind of dry but moist at the same time, if you will. They'll tend to water because of, maybe it's the dryness, I'm not sure, but I'm still trying to figure out which components actually cause these different feelings, so we can try to eliminate some of the negative factors. Because I love caffeine. I think it's a phenomenal substance. It was said that Voltaire, when he was writing, he drank 72 cups of coffee a day. Now that's just kind of one of those old myths, but it's believed that he did drink significantly close to that, and just constantly drinking coffee. And there were times when you didn't have the option, so you kind of drank what was there, and if you were a coffee head, you were a coffee head. one of the interesting things is nicotine, because to me, caffeine is a phenomenal substance, but nicotine also has its place. Of course, you don't want to consume it in cigarette form. And I've had people mention patches. I think that patches are maybe a good option for somebody who's trying to quit smoking, or somebody who wants a consistent release of nicotine throughout the day. But I actually enjoy vaping because it gives me the option. I can vape when I want. I don't have to have a lot of nicotine. I just use like a 3 milligram vape. But after 25 years of smoking cigarettes, now I've been vaping for about a year and a half. And I never wanted a cigarette. I never want to go back to smoking. But also I've asked myself, do I want to quit vaping? And I've had people say, well, you know, you can get down to the zero nicotine. And I was like, well, I understand there is the oral fixation part of it. One of my son's friends, he's in his 20s, you know, and he says, you got vape hand. I was like, what's that? He's like, you know, it's like when you're always holding your vape in your hand. A lot of people do. And that's me. It isn't something that is just has to do with smoking. Smoking fulfilled that oral fixation. To me, I guess vaping is really no different than sucking my thumb with my blanket, which I did when I was a kid. And it's just a continuation of that, you know. It's like the crack pipe being the metaphor for the teat, you know, where we all have that, the comfort that comes with it. When I used to take, in my teen years, when I'd take LSD, I discovered that I would always hold a rock or something in my hand, and I had this one particular chunk of slag. And slag is like leftovers from mining. We have an iron smelter, a big old stone iron smelter at the park down in Lake Oswego, where I grew up for a few years, and we'd go down to the park and party out and jump the fence and hang out in the smelter. And inside the smelter were these big chunks of slag, which were byproducts of the smelting process of iron. And the slag basically looks like obsidian. It's like green glass, and it was littered everywhere along the river down there. I mean, before it was a park, it was a huge production area. And I didn't know at the time what it was. To me, it was just beautiful obsidian, but I found a piece that was like broken to where it fit right in my hand perfectly. And I remember my fingers sat like this on it, my thumb wrapped around it. And we took some rather strong LSD one day at the park early in the day, and proceeded to walk around the park and sit on benches and explore flowers in the woods. And the whole time I had this rock in my hand, and I would not let it go, and I had that thing for years. I guess that just popped into my head now because I'm thinking about, you know, different things that we become attached to, you know, our addictions, if you will. Not just caffeine or nicotine or cannabis, but shopping, skydiving, addicted to mountain climbing, anything that causes anxiety, even if it's excitement, like the fight or flight syndrome, say, you know, skydiving or mountain climbing. That's treated by the body the same. It's a stress response. I mean, you'll get the excitement out of it, but it actually is doing somewhat damage to your body if you're constantly in that mode. And I'm not saying that mountain climbing is dangerous. Of course it is, but I'm not saying that it's dangerous to your well-being, because the price that you pay is insignificant compared to the happiness and excitement you get. In other words, life is just a series of experiences. And if we don't take chances, and we don't get out and do things, and if we don't fulfill our obligation to just get our hands dirty, or whether it be just hanging on to something, I think it's important that we do these things and not deprive ourselves of happiness, if you know what I mean. Now, this is completely my subjective view, because I also realize that there's a point when a person has to say, hey, you know, let's just say, hey, I'm drinking a fifth of Jack Daniels a day and smoking crack all morning, you know, maybe there's something that needs to change. Just because you feel good doesn't mean that you're doing the right thing. But if you can function in the world with a coherent mind, you're able to respond to loved ones and family when they need, when you're able to get off your ass and get motivated to get things done you need, which is one of my shortcomings, and I know that. Like, that's what we're all working to do, is just be good people and enjoy our lives, you know? For me, it's like this morning I woke up with a toothache. I have a tooth that's completely gone, and I'm scared of the dentist, and I'm also don't have dental insurance. And I use that as my excuse to not go. and I need to go. So it was hurting a little while ago, and I said, okay. I told myself last night when it was hurting that I was gonna look up a dentist and finally do it. So the minute I walked into the computer and sat down to look for a local dentist, it stopped hurting, and I just laughed because I, this is the kind of in-tuneness with my brain that I'm working towards. That my body and my mind, even though just because I feel pain doesn't mean that I can't control my pain. Because over the last several years, when I had sciatica that made me feel like I was dying, and I've had several toothaches over the years because I ate too much sugar when I was younger, and I still, up until recently, still did, and then I'd say go to bed stoned, not brush my teeth, that kind of stuff. It adds up, and then you feel embarrassed and you don't want to go in. And even last time I went, the hygienist said, no, you have really good teeth. You just have really deep roots and you have really strong teeth. You just need to get a few of them fixed. And I never catch up to the ones that are already damaged, and so it just gets worse and worse. And it's embarrassing as hell, sure. But it's something I know I need to tackle and I need to do on my own time. And I'm just using that as, I guess, an example of, things that we know we need to do and know we could do, but we put off, and we're able to just, it's human nature to move on to something bigger and better and not worry about our shortcomings. It's a protective measure, but it also holds us back. It's almost like we need to beat ourselves up sometimes a little more to get things done. But if people take it too far, they get into that mode where they are work fanatics, workaholics. They just want to work, 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 and everything's about work to take the pressure off of sitting and being human and finding a life. So we have, on one end, people who work, 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 and never want to sit down because it's easier to distract yourself. Then we have, on the opposite end, the extreme, there's people who don't work at all, and they think a lot, and they have all these great ideas, but no money and no way to put them into action, and no motivation to work because they're so deep into thought. I tend to be that kind of person where I'm a thinker, and I wish I could get paid to do thinking, or, and I'm sure if I had that structured organization, I would be able to sit down and write down what I want to do, and I have done this before, but figure out a career path or a job that I might want to do 10 years from now that could involve my thinking and my ideas and speaking. But it's complicated because I change constantly. And I guess what I'm getting at here is that if you're the kind of person like me who changes all the time and changes your ideas, it can be a great thing because you're open to interpretation. You're able to adjust to whatever comes your way. You won't be broken by big changes. But on the other hand, you might be content with the way things are, which can be a good thing, or it can hold you back. This is something that I think a lot of people understand where I'm coming from with that. But if you work too hard and never decide who you are, then when you retire, you're stuck with yourself and your thoughts. You can work your ass off and never get anywhere in life. Which actually brings me to a quote that I just remembered that I was going to start this, what was it? I was thinking about, I guess it'll probably pop back into my mind in a bit. The idea that we can work really hard our entire lives and kind of miss what it means to be alive. And when we see our mistakes, we might forcibly punish others through words. An example is an adult who was forced by his parents to do good in school, was told to go to college and felt guilty, had to take on a career that maybe they didn't want, and did it all to impress their parents. And then when they had kids, and their kids decided they wanted to do something else, there's two ways to go about that. You can either say, well, I don't want to make the same mistake my parents made and try to force you into playing sports or taking this job, so do whatever you're going to do and I'll respect that. Or the parents who say, well, I suffered, so you should suffer too. And that's the way I think we shouldn't be. Those are the parents who say, well, my parents told me to go to college, so you're going to college. And my parents told me to get a life, and you get a life. And, it's the line that came to mind, it popped back in, was from Twisted Sister. It was from the video I Want to Rock from the 80s, and I was just listening to it, a few days ago, and it's Like this kid comes in, a guy comes in and this kid's playing guitar, and the guy's like, "Look at you." He's like, "What do you want to do with your life?" is the line. And of course the kid says, "I want to rock." And that was it, and it's funny because the 80s parents who, that was kind of the attitude they were trying to get away from, some parents, that, oh, my kid just wants to be a rock star. Those people who want to be rock stars, even if they don't turn out to be rock stars, turn out to be some good people, a lot of them, and some don't. But people are people, and we need to pursue our passions, because it's better to look back and say, I tried to be a rock star and didn't succeed, than to say I wanted to be a rock star and never gave myself the chance. Hopefully we become humble enough to notice that being a star means absolutely nothing, being famous means nothing, being rich means nothing, but being human and having experiences means something. So whatever we do is what we do, right? Anyhow, I'm gonna go now. I will check out the lake over here, or the pond rather. Siddhartha's chilling. It's quite icy. There we go. Standing in the pond. The fish are down there, chilling. What's up, Gino? What's up, boy? Well, namaste, my friends. I say namaste meaning namaste, not in some cheesy, wannabe Eastern mysticism form, but for those who wonder, namaste means I am you and you are me, so we are we.